Are modern comics good investments? I think you might be really surprised at some of the data that I found. Stay tuned.
Bry's Comics.
Welcome to another video. If you're new here, we always do a monthly giveaway on my YouTube channel. If you subscribe to the channel, comment on this video, and like this video, you're entered to win Nova #1 in a CGC 9.8. And if you head over to bryscomics.com and sign up for the newsletter, you're entered to win another free slab over there each and every month. So this video was sparked by some recent collections that I picked up. I've actually picked up 2 collections from the same seller of these awesome, super high value, super rare, modern incentive ratios. Picking up these books has got me, thinking about the question, are modern comics good investments? And the short answer to that is it depends, right? It totally depends on the book. It depends on the ratio. It depends on the cover. It depends on the key significance of the book. There's a lot of factors that go into it. But if you know what you're doing, and if you can take some calculated risks with modern investing in comics, there is a ton of money to be made. So here we are on gpanalysis.com, and this is the market reports for GPA market reports. So this is compiling all the data from CGC graded comic sales, okay? It doesn't include raw books, it doesn't include CBCS or other grading companies. It doesn't get every single sale that happens on the internet. It doesn't record, obviously, in-person trades and sales at Comic Cons, but it does scour dozens and dozens and dozens of online sale websites, and in my opinion is the most useful and accurate data to use for comic book sales as GPA and GPA market reports. So here we have an overview of value report, and this is the monthly total from April. So it's a little bit behind. Here we are in June, but it's still super valuable. So in April, the majority of money changing hands in comics was platinum and gold, followed by silver, followed by modern, followed by bronze. You might expect numbers like this, but this is actually a new trend. For many, many, many months, modern was leading the pack in total value, in the total value report of the total value of money changing hands. And so I think what this shows is that people are cashing out on their silver and golden age books, and you see it at auction houses all the time right now, where these super high value grails are coming to market that haven't come to market for many, many, many years. But up until this point, modern consistently led the pack in total value. But if we look at the aggregate progressive totals for the last year, from May of 2021 to April of 2022, the platinum golden was $85 million. So this means that $85 million worth of slabs in the golden era changed hands in the last year. And silver was 87 million and modern was 84 million. So these three numbers, 28%, 28%, 29, these are statistically insignificant as far as the difference. The difference between these different eras is statistically insignificant. It's about even in the last year for modern, silver, and golden. But I think historically, modern would actually have been leading the pack. But we've had, this market boom and some interesting, unique market situations. But still, even with those unique situations, modern is at the same level as far as total value of books that have changed hands. Now, if we go to this tab and look at the frequency of trade, this is where it gets really interesting. So for the month of April, only 4%, only 2,300 Golden Age books actually changed hands to make up those total numbers from the last page. 5,000 Silver Age books, 7,000 Bronze books, and 44,000 Modern Age books, making up 75% of all the books that changed hands. 75% of the transactions were for modern books. And if you look at the progressive total for the last year, these numbers are almost exactly in line. So what that shows you is that this is a trend that plays itself out over and over and over again, month over month, is that, and it makes perfect sense, the lowest number of books changing hands are golden, followed by silver, followed by bronze, followed by modern. So 458,000 sales in the last year for modern books, making up 73% of all of the sales and the same total value as silver and golden age. So what this tells you is that modern books are much easier to move. It's much easier to move a bunch of smaller transaction modern books. There's less, thought that goes into it. There's less, consideration in moving money around. I mean, these books could be massive purchases that involve multiple investors and things like that, where these lower dollar purchases for modern age books. Now, if we look at this page and see the top positive investment performers, progressive. So this is for the year. And so what this is a progressive report that lists the top positive investment performers. Individual books must have traded at least 10 times in the last 12 months. And it's the average monthly return compounding is calculated using a linear progression formula. So this just means that this is the average monthly return that happened for 12 straight months for these different books. And if we look at Silver Age, leading the pack for Silver Age is a 9.89% return on investment. So that means that Amazing Spider-Man number 33 in a 7.5 had the highest month-over-month average return on investment at 9.89%. So that means if you had this for a year, it went up about 10% every single month for the last year. And then if we look at the Bronze Age, the top performer is Doctor Strange, number 1. No big surprise there. We had several months that were just outrageous returns, which brings up this average, but about the same, about a 10% average return on investment month over month for Doctor Strange number 1 in a 6.5. And if we look here at the Modern Age, there's going to be some outliers on here because sometimes you'll have just a monster sale of something that really skews the numbers. But I mean, as you can see, even the lowest return on investment is 16% for the top 20. The 20th place is at 16%, which is almost 50% higher than the Silver Age. So the return on investment for modern age books, when it goes right, is magnitudes higher than any other era. And what's interesting here is Star Wars Empire Ascendant number 1, the Zurcher variant in a 9.8. This is actually one of the books that I picked up in this collection. It's just a super rare, cool cover, has Dr. Aphra on the cover. And this, made it as one of the top performers month over month. So some other books that you'll see on this list is books that, aren't necessarily a stranger to any of us. They've been on the hot and trending list. Star Wars: The High Republic number 7, the Mayhew variant cover A. This got super hot when there was a YouTube video made about it, about the key significance of this. If we look at Silver Surfer Black, Comic Mint Sketch Edition, this was a store variant that, performed really well when you look at it month over month. Here we have Swordmaster number 1 in 9.8 that had an average of a 17% return month over month. And the reason for this is probably because it was selling for, close to nothing. And then when it heated up, it just went absolutely crazy, bringing up that average. And so this just shows you a situation where Swordmaster number 1, if you got in at the right time, you could have made a lot of money on this book. Now, Comment Karen would tell me, I'm sorry to break it to you, Bri, but modern comics are bad investments because they haven't stood the test of time. Well, I'm sorry to break it to you, Comment Karen, but the numbers don't lie. There is a lot of money to be made in modern comics. And the Comment Karen does bring up a good point, which is they haven't stood the test of time. And to me, what that brings up is timing, because timing is everything with all of these books on all of these lists, not just the modern, but also the Silver Age. I mean, you have to know when to pull out. And so to say that, they haven't stood the test of time, he's absolutely right. I mean, we don't know where these things will land or how these things will shake out over time, but you don't have to park your money in these forever. The whole point and the whole idea behind, speculation and flipping and investing, especially in modern age books for the most part, is selling at the right time. And it's a very interesting topic that has kind of changed over the last few years. I mean, we're seeing a change in the market where, in my opinion, the best time to sell is any time there's hype. For example, this Star Wars High Republic number 7 Mayhew variant cover. If you were sitting on this and you're able to flip it for 100% ROI because of a YouTube video that happened highlighting this book, In my opinion, you absolutely sell at that point. Take your 100% ROI and run, because the chances of this book actually playing out in a Star Wars show or movie on Disney Plus is far less than the guaranteed chance of this playing out when that YouTube video was made, causing this book to go absolutely nuts. So if you take your 100% ROI or whatever your ROI is, whenever you can get it. And that's what's kind of changed over the last 5 or 10 years. Is it used to be, the best time to sell was when the trailer came out, and the hype was the highest for that trailer. But now we're seeing that kind of flip where sometimes announcements from apps like Key Collector or Bleeding Cool or internet articles will cause such a hype and such a spike in prices that they rival and sometimes eclipse the rises in prices that we see associated with trailer releases. So in my opinion, at this juncture in speculation history, the best time to sell your book is anytime that there's hype, because timing is everything. And some of these books, will just go absolutely nuts, be hot on the number one on the trending list, and then it's just crickets for months and months, sometimes years, sometimes they never come back. So instead of risking it, instead of trying to hold on and wait until the opportune time, just take your profit wherever you can get it. I see a lot of people like with Amazing Fantasy 15. I mean, you go to any one of the auction houses right now and there's like a dozen copies of AF15. And it's like people are trying to, cash in. And my question to them is like, what were you waiting for? I mean, why all of a sudden everyone wants to sell their Amazing Fantasy 15? Like 200% ROI wasn't good enough for you? What were you waiting for? 300% ROI? I mean, you bought it several years ago for 20 grand, now it's worth 60, and then you're still holding if your intent was to flip that Amazing Fantasy 15. My thought on this is don't be greedy. Take it where you can get it. And if you see, if something is rising or going up in price, just take your profit then if your intention is to sell. Obviously, this entire conversation is completely different if your goal is to collect, right? There's a difference between collecting and investing and speculating. And so it's important to make that distinction. All right, so now if we look at the top negative investment performers from the different eras, we get some more really interesting information. And so for the top negative performers for the Silver Age, the biggest loser was 8.46%. Tales of Suspense number 50 and a 5.0 had the biggest losing percentage month over month. So that means it took an 8% loss every month for the last year. And if we look at the Bronze Age, the entire list of 20 books is all Eternals books in different grades, which is no surprise there. And then if we look at the modern age, the biggest loser is G.I. Joe Real American Hero, taking a 25% loss month over month for the last year. A bunch of interesting ones that made the list here. Jupiter's Legacy number 1, which was that Netflix show that got canceled. So obviously that one is performing really bad. Nice House on the Lake, the 1 in 25 Della Dara cover, taking a huge hit. A lot of these, this is an interesting list, actually for all of these, could be an interesting list to look at for books to potentially target, and say, wow, this one is taking such a massive hit. Maybe it's time to consider actually picking one up. A lot of these, obviously, you shouldn't. But like Nice House on the Lake, for example, I think that this is definitely going to get optioned. It seems like if it's taken such a big hit, now could be a great time to pick up Nice House on the Lake variants, especially this is a 1 in 25, and it's so cheap right now. The biggest takeaway from this, though, is that there's a way bigger percentage of losers, 25% versus 8%. So there's way more risk. You bet big to win big. There's more risk, there's more reward, there's also more chance for a huge loss in these modern comics, which is a very important point to consider. Is you got to know what you're doing and take calculated risks, know when to get out. I started my business strictly flipping modern comics, and not only that, only buying graded modern comics and selling graded modern comics. I wasn't even submitting to CGC myself. I got this ball rolling, everything that's going on with my business, with flipping modern comics that were already graded, just buying on eBay, selling on eBay. And since then, it has totally evolved. There's so many different aspects to my business, but it's definitely one that I still do, is buy books graded on eBay when I see them for a great price, when they're a good spec, and sell them on eBay or my website or wherever it is when that spec plays off. So there absolutely is money to be made on modern comics, and they can be good investments if you know what you're doing. Case in point, let's take the most extreme example that there is. It's Amazing Spider-Man number 667, a 1 in 100 Dell Auto cover. It's at auction as we speak. By the time you're watching this, it has already sold. So it'll be interesting to see where that lands. But currently, it's sitting at $31,000 on Heritage Auctions. This is just a 1 in 100 Dell Auto cover. It's just a super rare, super cool cover. No key significance with the book whatsoever. It's just a cool cover and a rare book. And it's selling for over $30,000 for a modern comic. And it used to sit at the top as the most valuable modern variant that there is, but I do believe that that has been recently eclipsed by Ultimate Fallout 4, the 1 in 25 Djurjevic variant. It's a 1 in 25 variant that sold for over $40,000 recently. But here's one big tip for buying and flipping modern incentive high ratio comics, and that is if it's a hot book key that has such a high ratio incentive, like a 1 in 1,000, and if you find that 1 in 1,000 and you're like, whoa, I didn't know that that book even had a 1 in 1,000, that means that a lot of other people were probably unaware of that book having a 1 in 1,000, and it may be just super flying under the radar and could easily double in price overnight if more people become aware of it or something like that. Case in point here is Champions number 1. Did you know that Champions number 1 has a 1 in 1,000 ratio variant? I didn't know that up until a couple weeks ago. I saw one at auction. I said, whoa, there's a 1 in 1,000 for that book? I mean, I knew all the way up to the 1 in 100, but I didn't even know that there was a 1 in 1,000. And it's selling, I think it was selling for less than the 1 in 100 ratio. So that's an example of a hot book that has some serious potential for the future going forward. That's a high ratio incentive that just a lot of people don't know about because it's so rare. It never comes up for a couple other thoughts about this concept of, are modern comics good investments? Well, I want to flip that question a little bit and say, are modern comics high incentive ratios good collectibles? Okay, because now that is a completely separate question. Is it a good investment, and is it a good collectible? Two completely different things. All it needs to be a good collectible is it needs to bring you joy. If you bought something as a collectible simply because you like it, you enjoy it, you want to look at it, then it has served its purpose as a good collectible. Now, whether or not that's a good investment is a different question and depends on how much you're going to be able to sell it for when you decide to move on from that collectible. And that is the beauty of comic book collecting, is you can have both. You can have good collectibles that bring you joy, that you love looking at, and are good investments. But you got to be careful. You got to be careful to avoid some traps. There are a lot of traps out there that will lure you in just from the nature of them being cool collectibles, that you can amass this huge collection that when you go to sell, you'll find out that you're going to take a big hit on that because they may have been good collectibles, but not good investments. Case in point, before I started my comic book business, I had a We Sell Your Stuff on eBay store where I sold any and everything. And a lot of times I would get calls for these little gnome statues, these little, I can't remember what they're made out of, some kind of resin gnomes that were collectible. They were all made by the same artist, and I would get calls consistently from elderly people that were moving on from their collection of gnomes. And I remember going to this one house this one time where this man, his wife had collected these gnomes her whole adult life, and she passed away, and he wanted to sell them. He just wanted them gone, right? And we were trying to value this collection. This living room was completely covered in gnomes. Pulled out some receipts, and he was showing me how much he paid. And some of these little resin gnomes, she paid hundreds and hundreds of dollars for because they were super rare or signed by the artist or whatever. And then you go on eBay and look what they're selling for, and it's like $10 or $15, and she paid $300. So in that case, it was a good collectible because she enjoyed those things. She didn't buy them as investments. She enjoyed them to put them in her living room and to just enjoy these little gnomes doing their little thing with these intricate, they're cool, but they were terrible investments because she took a huge hit on the resale value of those gnomes. Another thought that I've had for our modern comics high ratio incentive good investments is they are a completely different type of investment as, say, a very popular Bronze Age book. Let's take, for example, Giant Size X-Men #1. Super hot, super popular book, always will be in incredibly high demand. It's got an epic cover, it has crazy key significance, super important book to comic books and pop culture history. Now, that book is not rare by any stretch of the imagination. There are hundreds of thousands of copies of that book printed. There are over 10,000 copies graded on the CGC census, yet it demands a crazy high premium. It's a super expensive book. There's a ton of copies out there, but there is even more demand, making that not rare book worth a lot of money. Now, when you look at modern incentive ratios, like that Amazing Spider-Man 667 1 in 100, there is very, very few copies of that available, and a very, very small niche of collectors that actually would pay that kind of money. But those things go together. Small niche of collectors that want to buy it, small availability. The numbers shake out to where that is over a $30,000 book, as opposed to Giant Size X-Men. Huge market of people that want that book, huge amount supplied together. That shakes out to a very expensive book. So it's all about supply and demand, as it always is with comic books and any kind of investment. So it's a different type of investment. And that's one of the things that I've learned with these high ratio incentives is it doesn't have to be a super well-known book. It doesn't have to have a super large number of people that are after it and want to buy it. This is a very niche hobby, and if you find that one buyer for that book by putting it on eBay, because eBay has millions and millions of customers looking for it, so if there is a person looking for that 1 in 500 ratio, they are likely going to find it on eBay. So that's it for this video, guys. Leave a note in the comments if I missed anything about this topic of our modern comics good investments. Thank you as always for sticking with me to the end of the video. Don't forget to follow me over on Whatnot for the Spin for Slabs game. They are incredibly fun, awesome new way to shop for slabs and win cool prizes. Sign up for the newsletter at brycecomics.com to be entered to win a free slab, and subscribe to the channel, comment on this video, and like this video for your chance to win a free slab over here. Thank you so much for sticking with me to the end. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye.
Bryce Comics.